The prize no one wanted, the war was over. Smoke still rose from the broken alien buildings. The ground was black with ash. Human soldiers walked through the ruins of the alien city, tired and quiet. Some were wounded. Some were angry. But one man, Jason, just looked tired. He was a soldier, not a hero. He didn't like fighting. He just wanted to go home. But first, there was the ceremony. The alien war chief stood on a high platform surrounded by his warriors. His skin was dark, blue, his eyes sharp. He spoke in his language and a translator repeated it in English. "You humans helped us win. As a gift, we offer rewards." One by one, human soldiers were called forward. Some were given strange weapons. Others were given gold, alien pets, or land. When it was Jason's turn, he stepped forward without hope. Then the crowd went silent. 2. Alien guards came forward. They dragged something behind them. Someone. A young alien woman. She was chained, her wrists red and bruised. Her clothes were torn. Her long white hair hung over her face, dirty and tangled. Her body was thin, weak, but still graceful. Her skin was a pale silver color. She kept her head down. "She is yours now," said the translator. "A slave taken from the enemy's royal house." The other soldiers laughed. "Jason got a girl," one shouted. "A slave? What's he gonna do with that?" Another joked. Jason stood still. His eyes didn't move from her face. He wasn't smiling. "Take her," said the alien chief. Jason looked at the girl again. She was shaking. She hadn't spoken a word, but her eyes, barely visible through her messy hair, were filled with something, not fear, not hate, something broken, something trapped. He walked forward. The guard shoved her toward him. She stumbled and fell to her knees. Jason reached down, gently lifted her up, and nodded silently. He didn't say thank you. He didn't smile. He took her hand carefully and walked away. Back at the human outpost, the soldiers celebrated. Loud music, drinks, stories, laughter. Jason sat alone in his quarters. The girl, still silent, sat in the corner of the room. Her chain was removed, but she didn't move. She just sat there, knees to her chest, her arms around her legs. Jason placed food on a plate and pushed it toward her. She didn't move. "It's safe," he said. "Eat." Still no response. He sighed and sat back. "Do you understand me?" She looked up for a second. Their eyes met. Then she looked down again. Jason didn't sleep that night. He sat in the chair across from her, watching, thinking. He didn't know what to do. He didn't ask for her. He didn't want a slave. But he also couldn't leave her behind. She was a person. She just needed time. The next morning, Jason went to the small market to get clean clothes, water, and a blanket. When he returned, she was still in the same place. He left the items near her. Later that day, he heard something, a soft noise. She was crying. It wasn't loud, just a quiet sound, like someone trying not to be heard. Jason didn't move. He let her cry. That night, she finally touched the food. She picked up a piece of fruit with her fingers, smelled it, then took a bite. Slowly, carefully. Jason watched without saying a word. The next day, he tried to speak again. "My name is Jason," he said, pointing to himself. She looked at him. He pointed again. "Jason." She opened her mouth. Her voice was dry, barely a whisper. "Alira." Jason smiled just a little. "Lyra." She nodded. It was the first time she showed any emotion. Her name. That was a start. That night, Jason heard her screaming in her sleep. He rushed over and found her curled up on the floor, shaking. She shouted words in her alien language, a language Jason didn't understand, except one: "Run." It was the only word that came out clearly. Jason froze. What had she seen? What was chasing her in her dreams? He looked at the alien girl, at Elira, and he knew one thing for sure. She wasn't just a gift. She was a prisoner of something, much bigger, and Jason had just stepped into a story far darker than he imagined. Jason tried everything: food, water, clean clothes, a soft place to sleep. Still, Elira said nothing. She sat by the small window of the outpost room, her knees tucked close, her pale silver skin glowing under the weak light. Her long white hair was cleaner now, but she still kept her eyes low and her lips closed. Jason didn't push her. He just watched from a distance, wondering who she really was and what had been done to her. Other soldiers teased him behind his back. Still trying to teach your alien pet tricks? She's not a pet, Jason once said sharply. She's a person. But no one listened. No one cared. Elira was just a prize, nothing more. One day, Jason brought her a small old datapad. It had a basic language app. He opened it and pointed to a word. Water, he said slowly. She looked at the screen, then at him. No reaction. He pointed to the glass on the table. Water. She stayed silent. Food, he tried again. Then friend. Then safe. No answer. Jason gave up and stood to leave, but as he turned, he heard her voice. Quiet, broken. Jurak. He stopped. What? She looked up. Jurak, she repeated. It mean water. Her words were rough, her voice unused. But they were words. Jason smiled for the first time in days. He returned to the table and tapped the screen again. Jurak, he said. Elira gave a small nod. It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the wall. That night, something strange happened. Jason left the room for a few minutes to speak with a superior. When he returned, the room was empty. Panic hit his chest. She was gone. He rushed outside. The camp was quiet. Only a few lights glowed. He searched behind tents, in the shadows, his heart pounding. Then he saw her. She stood barefoot, under the stars not far from the gate. Her face tilted upward, eyes closed, breathing in the night air. Jason stepped closer. Elira. She turned slowly, not startled. I needed Sky, she said softly. He walked to her side. You could have been caught. I was caught already, she whispered. Now I breathe. Jason didn't speak. He just stood beside her, looking up at the stars too. After a while, she said, You are different. How? You do not pull chain. You do not touch without asking. Jason looked down at her, surprised. Is that what they did to you? Elira didn't answer. She didn't have to. The next few days, something changed. She still spoke little, but her eyes met his more often. She sat closer. She even touched the datapad herself now, pointing to words and trying to match them with her own language. Friend. Janai. Cold Vina. Free. She stopped. Her fingers shook. Jason waited. Free. She repeated. No word. It not exist on my world. That sentence hit Jason like a punch to the chest. No word for free. He didn't know what to say, so he just said, It exists now. But not everyone was happy with her slow progress. One afternoon, Jason returned from duty and found the door to his room open. Voices inside. He ran in. 3 soldiers stood over Elira. One held her by the arm. She looked terrified. Her feet were pressed to the floor, ready to bolt. She's not yours to keep, Jason, one soldier said. She's just a leftover. Jason pushed him aside. Leave, now. They laughed and left slowly, muttering curses. Jason turned to Elira. She was breathing fast. Her hands shook. He kneeled down. I'm sorry. She backed away. Her body, went cold again, her eyes dark, guarded. But just as Jason stood up to give her space, she said something in her own language. He didn't understand the words, but the way she said them felt like a question, a painful one. Jason walked to the corner, picked up the datapad, and pointed to a word. Safe? Elira looked at him, then nodded. That night she slept closer to the bed, still on the floor, still curled up. But for the first time, her breathing was calm. And for the first time, she slept without chains. Jason had seen war. He had seen soldiers die. He had seen cities fall. But nothing stayed in his mind like the look in Elira's eyes. Not angry, not afraid, just hollow. It was the kind of pain that didn't scream. It just stared. Weeks had passed since the day she arrived. She now wore clean clothes. Her hair was no longer tangled. She even walked around the small outpost room without fear. But she still didn't smile. She still flinched at loud sounds. She still froze when someone knocked. And Jason had learned something very strange. Elira never slept at night. Not once. He would pretend to sleep only to hear her pacing quietly or sitting by the window, whispering in her alien tongue. Her voice was low and filled with sadness, like she was talking to ghosts. One night, Jason couldn't take it anymore. He sat up and said gently, "You don't have to stay awake. You're safe." Elira turned slowly, eyes tired. She whispered, "Sleep is when they came." Jason frowned. "Who?" She didn't answer. The next day, Jason tried a new idea. He brought a mirror. He placed it on the table and turned it toward her. She looked confused. "It's you," he said softly. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Her reflection stared, back, pale, beautiful, tired. But instead of touching the mirror, she suddenly punched it. The glass cracked, her knuckles bled. Jason stood, shocked. "Elira, why?" "I do not know her," she whispered. "I do not want her." She walked to the corner and curled up again, just like before. Jason picked up the broken glass, heart heavy. Later, he asked gently, "Were you someone important before?" Elira said nothing at first. Then she said, "I was daughter of Sky." Jason raised an eyebrow. "A princess?" She looked away. "That word is small." Jason chuckled. "Okay, Sky daughter then." She closed her eyes. "They took everything. My wings, my voice, my name." Jason asked quietly, "They hurt you?" Elira opened her eyes. For the first time, she said it clearly. "Yes." From that day, she began to talk more, but only with Jason. Jason's piece was over. The warning came in a sealed military message, red-marked and urgent. Unit withdrawal ordered within 48 hours. All unauthorized alien assets to be surrendered or eliminated. No exceptions. Jason stared at the screen. His fingers tightened. They were talking about Elira. That night, Jason didn't sleep. He watched her, resting by the small window, arms around her knees. Her eyes were closed, but he knew she wasn't fully asleep. She never was. How could he just hand her over? She had survived so much, she was finally healing, and now they wanted to take her back into the dark. No, not while Jason was breathing. The next morning, Jason made a choice. He packed a small bag with supplies, water, nutrient packs, medical kit, and an old star map of the jungle zone. When Elira woke, she saw the pack. She saw the tension in his face. "What happened?" she asked softly. Jason looked at her. "They're coming. To take you." Her hands clenched. "To chain again?" He shook his head. "Not if I can help it." Elira stood. "Then we go." They left just before dawn, through the back gates, past the rusted fences, and into the thick alien jungle beyond. It was a place no soldier wanted to enter, a death zone, creatures with sharp fangs, plants that spat poison, shadows that moved when nothing was there. But it was better than chains, and Elira moved like she belonged in it. She led the way, barefoot and silent, her silver skin blending with the misty morning light. Jason followed close, careful not to make noise. After 2 hours of walking, Jason finally asked, "Why aren't you afraid of this place?" Elira replied, "Because it's not full of men." By nightfall, they made a fire in a hidden cave. Jason checked the scanner. No movement nearby. But Elira didn't rest. She stood at the mouth of the cave, eyes scanning the darkness. Jason approached. "They won't find us tonight." Elira shook her head. "It's not them I fear." He frowned. "What then?" She whispered. "He is coming." Jason didn't understand. "Who?" She looked at him, voice tight. "The one who broke my wings." That night she told Jason everything about the alien general who captured her during the fall of her kingdom, about how he paraded her in chains to crush the will of her people, how he kept her alive only to remind others that resistance was useless. "He didn't kill me," she said. "He erased me." Jason sat in silence, anger rising in his chest. "If he comes, I'll stop him." Elira smiled faintly. "He is not afraid of guns, he is afraid of me." The next day the jungle grew louder. Beasts howled, trees shook. Jason checked the scanner again, one signal, steady, getting closer. They were being tracked. That night Elira finally spoke clearly. "I want to stop running." Jason turned. "What do you mean?" "I want to face him, the one who stole my name." Jason didn't answer at first. He stared into the fire. Then he nodded. "We'll face him together." Just then a sharp sound came from the trees. Something metallic, something heavy. Elira stood up. Her hand reached for the old fork she had kept since the outpost. Jason raised his weapon, his voice low. "How far?" Elira closed her eyes. "He's near. I can feel him." In the distance, a tall shadow stepped through the mist, alien armor, glowing red eyes. A deep, cruel voice spoke in her language. Jason couldn't understand the words, but he saw Elira's hands tighten. Her whisper was clear. "That is the monster who wore a crown of bones." The enemy had arrived. But this time, Elira was not the one in chains. They ran, through thick vines and glowing fog, deeper into the jungle's heart, the place even local beasts avoided. Behind them, the red-eyed hunter followed. He didn't run. He didn't need to. He knew the jungle. He knew her, and he was enjoying the hunt. Jason's boots slipped on the damp roots, but Elira moved like a shadow. Quiet, fast, focused. "Where are we going?" he whispered. She answered without looking back. "To a place where the sky forgets your name." Jason didn't know what that meant. He followed anyway. They came to a deep ravine, dark, filled with mist, and hidden by huge trees that blocked the sky. No signals worked here, no tech, only instinct. "This is where I died," Elira said quietly, standing at the edge. Jason looked at her. "What?" "The old me. The one who obeyed. The one who begged." She looked at the deep pit of vines and bones. "This place is where I stopped being a princess and became something else." Jason stepped beside her. "Then let's bury the old you and end this." They built a trap, not with machines, but with the jungle itself. Elira taught Jason how to use the poison leaves, how to spot the snakes that pretended to be vines, how to dig pits that closed themselves after falling. She was quiet, sharp, and full of knowledge no human should have. Jason watched her move. Not a victim, not a slave, not even a girl. A warrior. And maybe something more. As night fell, the sounds of the jungle changed. The trees whispered. The wind stopped. Jason raised his gun. Elira didn't need one. She crouched behind the trees, fork in hand, heart steady. Then they heard it. The voice. Rough. Deep. Familiar. "You run like a child, Elira. the red-eyed alien said in her language. But I made you. I can unmake you. Jason didn't understand the words, but he saw her tremble, not with fear but rage. She stepped out of the shadows and faced him. The red-eyed general stood tall. His armor glowed like fire. He held a long blade, pulsing with red energy. You always were my best creation, he said, switching to rough English. You made a mistake, Illyra answered calmly. Oh? And what mistake is that? You left me alive, she charged. Jason fired. The jungle exploded with noise, leaves flying, animals scattering. But the general was fast, knocking bullets aside with his blade. Illyra reached him in seconds. She didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like a memory come alive. She used her body, her speed, her knowledge of the jungle. She moved between vines, vanished in mists, struck from shadows. Jason tried to help, but he knew this wasn't his battle. This was hers. Finally, the general made a mistake. He followed her into the pit. It was a trap she had set as a child, a place meant to catch something bigger than herself. He fell, not far, just enough. Enough for her to strike. She landed beside him. He tried to rise. She stabbed him in the arm with the old fork, not to kill him, but to stop him. He growled. You think this makes you strong? Illyra leaned close. I was strong before you took my name. Then she whispered something in her language and pushed him into the real trap below. A pit of sleeping roots awakened. They wrapped him. Like hungry snakes, he screamed, but no one heard him in that cursed jungle. Later, Jason and Illyra sat near the fire again. Neither spoke for a long time. Then she said, He's gone. Jason nodded. And you? She looked at him. Still here? Still me, she touched her chest. But now, I choose who I am. Jason smiled. Then who are you, Illyra? She looked up at the stars through the jungle's cracks. I don't know yet, but I want to find out. With you. They thought it was over. Jason and Illyra sat by the fire, the jungle quiet at last. The red-eyed general had fallen, his armor was crushed. His screams had been swallowed by the roots, but peace, they soon learned, was only the eye of the storm. 2 days later, the sky darkened. Jason saw it first, a faint glow above the treetops, not from stars or ships, but from drones. They hovered, like silent insects, blinking red. They're scanning, Jason whispered, checking his tracker. Military grade, not ours. Illyra's face grew cold. He called them. Jason looked at her confused. The general? He's dead. But Illyra shook her head. He was only the knife. The hand that held it is still out there. Later, that night, Illyra took Jason to an ancient ruin hidden deep in the jungle, a forgotten temple her people once guarded. The walls were broken. Strange carvings glowed with weak light. This is where truth lives, she said. Jason followed, her inside. There, deep underground, lay a sealed chamber. Illyra placed her palm on the wall. It recognized her touch. The stone hissed open. Inside was a holographic scroll, ancient and flickering. Jason's eyes widened as it lit up. Images of Illyra appeared. Younger, dressed in royal silver, her wings, not real wings, but symbolic. Armor, shining bright. She was more than a princess, the hologram said in a deep voice. She was the voice of unity, the last child born of the 3 tribes. Jason turned to her, stunned. You were supposed to rule them all? Illyra nodded slowly. But I didn't want a crown. I wanted peace. They called me weak. She stepped closer to the hologram. I offered peace, she said bitterly. They offered chains. The truth was clear now. The war hadn't just taken her freedom. It had erased her purpose. And the general who hunted her? He wasn't acting alone. He was ordered to destroy her legacy, to bury her name, her bloodline, her claim to unite the stars. Jason finally understood why they wanted her dead. Because if she lived, they couldn't rule with fear anymore. As they exited the ruin, they saw shadows in the trees. Not beasts, not soldiers, but mercenaries, humans, aliens, mixed, all with guns pointed at them. A voice came from the trees. "Give her to us, Jason. Walk away, and you live." Jason raised his weapon. "Not a chance." "You don't understand," the voice said. "She's a symbol. Symbols must be erased." Then came a second voice, female, cold and sharp. "No, she is not a symbol anymore." Elira stepped forward. She didn't hide. She didn't run. She spoke in perfect English this time, her voice loud and steady. "I am Elira, Sky Daughter, blood of unity. You hunted me through chains and fire, but I am still here." One of the mercenaries laughed. "And what are you going to do? You're just two." Jason smirked. "That's one too many for you." Then the jungle moved. Not wind, not beasts, but people, locals, rebels, survivors, those who had once followed her family, those who had watched from the shadows. They emerged, holding simple weapons, spears, slings, flame knives, not trained soldiers, but believers. The mercenaries hesitated. Elira raised her voice. "No more fear, no more chains. I don't need a throne, I only need truth." Then she pointed at Jason. "And I choose him, a human. Not because he saved me, but because he let me save myself." The crowd roared. The mercenaries fled. They were paid to hunt, not to fight armies of ghosts. And just like that, Elira reclaimed what was taken. Not a crown, not a palace, but her voice. That night, Jason and Elira sat alone again. This time, no jungle, no running, just stars above and soft wind. "You didn't have to choose me," Jason said quietly. "I didn't," Elira replied with a smile. "I wanted to." Elira was no longer in chains, not her body, not her voice, not her heart. But now she faced a different kind of choice. Not between war and surrender, not between survival and death, but between running alone or building a life with the one who walked beside her. The jungle was behind them. The fighting, the fear, the long nights of silence, over. Elira stood beside Jason on the platform of an old refugee shuttle as it lifted into the sky. Below them, the green mist of the wilds faded. Above them, stars opened like a path she had once believed lost forever. Jason stood silently beside her. For the first time, she took his hand, not because she needed safety, but because she wanted to feel his warmth. They landed on Luma 6, a quiet moon where no flags flew and no soldiers patrolled. It was a place of second chances. The kind of place where no one asked where you came from, only where you were going. Jason used his savings to buy a small shelter near the cliffs. He built the house by hand. Elira helped, cutting stone with alien tools, planting small glowing trees that reminded her of home. They lived quietly. They lived together. But something still hung between them. Not tension, not regret. A question. One evening, under the silver sky, Jason stood by the edge of the cliff looking down at the sea of clouds. Elira joined him, silent. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "Miss what?" she said softly. "Your throne. Your wings. The life they stole." She thought for a long time. Then she said, "I miss being believed in. I miss my people. But I don't miss the crown." Jason nodded. "You were always more than that." Elira looked at him. "You never wanted to own me," she said, "even when others did." "I never saw you as a thing to own," Jason replied. "I saw a woman who deserved better." Her voice cracked. "I was broken when you found me." "You were never broken," he said, facing her, "just buried. I only helped you dig." That night, Elira stood outside their home, looking up at the stars. She reached into her old pack and pulled out a small silver chain, what remained of her collar. She held it in her hands for a moment. then placed it on the fire. As it melted, she whispered, "I am no one's slave. Not even my past's." Jason watched from the doorway. Then he stepped forward and knelt. Elira blinked. "What are you doing?" He held out a simple ring made from star metal. It wasn't polished. It wasn't royal, but it glowed softly like him. "I don't own you," he said. "I never will, but I want to walk beside you, as a partner, as your husband, if you'll have me." Tears filled her eyes. Then she laughed, a real laugh, the kind that hadn't been heard in years. "You offer a queen a life of dirt, vegetables, and wind," she said. He smiled. "And love." She stepped forward and took the ring. "Then I accept. Not as a queen, not as a symbol." She placed the ring on her own finger, but as Elira, the woman who chose. The wedding was small. No flowers, no priests, just them, and a few former rebels who had followed her into the jungle. A soldier, a princess, and a handful of believers. Elira wore a dress made from local silk, simple, glowing faint blue in the wind. Jason wore his old military coat, cleaned and patched. They spoke no vows, only held hands and looked into each other's eyes. "I promise not to fix you," Jason said, "because you were never broken. And I promise not to leave," Elira whispered, "even when the stars call." Months passed, then a year, and one morning Jason woke to a strange sound in the house. He rushed out of bed expecting danger, but found Elira sitting by the small fire. She looked up at him, then down at her belly. "Think," she said, smiling gently. "We're not alone anymore." Jason blinked, then slowly knelt beside her. "You mean?" She nodded. A soft silence filled the room. Jason laughed, half crying. "You, me, and a future?" Elira placed his hand on her belly. "Not just a future," she whispered. "A legacy that no war could kill." Word of the Sky Daughter began to spread again, but not as a queen, as a wife, a mother, a fighter, and a healer. Other aliens, those once cast out, came to Luma 6. They built small homes around Jason and Elira's. Not a kingdom, but a community. A place for lost people to be found again. One day, a young alien girl came to Elira and asked, "Were you really a slave?" Elira knelt beside her and said, "I was many things, but what I am now, I chose." One night, years later, Elira stood with Jason on the same cliff where he had once proposed. Their child, a girl with his eyes and her hair, played with glowing insects nearby. Elira looked at him and said, "I used to wonder if love was a lie told to keep people hopeful." Jason raised an eyebrow. "And now?" She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Now I know it's not a lie. It's a rebellion, because love was the only thing powerful enough to turn a slave into a queen again. Not with a crown, but with a choice. And a vow made not with gold, but with fire, scars, and freedom."